Welcome, one and all. It is the return, don't call it a comeback, of the Collar and Elbow, the CAE podcast. We are live on Twitch right now. We are being recorded for all to listen to on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, all that good stuff. I'm Kenny Oak. I'm joined with, as always, by Christopher Madman Harris.
Oh God, we'll work on
Cowboy Chris Harris.
Cowboy, yeah, that's fine. A lot of
so
them.
so many nicknames, but oh my goodness! Oh, what's this? I'm getting updates on my phone. We're live. We're back.
It's
been
Bubs.
well over a year.
Has it been that long? I don't know if it's been a year, but
it's been over a year.
Really close to that.
But we are the CAE podcast. We're a little bit of a rebranding. We're no longer the Collar and Elbow Wrestling podcast, as we've decided there's just so many more interests that we have, so many more topics that we would like to talk about other than wrestling. But that's not to say that we're done talking wrestling. You know, we've got WWE Raw going on as we speak in the background.
That's right, it's on the TV.
But there's just so much more we want to delve into and talk about that we don't want to just be hamstrung by a label. So we are rebranding as the CAE podcast. Loving the Macho Man Randy Savage.
We'll be the artists formerly known as Prince Iakea. Collar and Elbow Wrestling. Yeah.
What a throwback.
But yeah, Bubs, new stuff, new brand, same great-looking dudes, same drinks.
We are. What are you drinking right now?
Well, I think you're setting me up for a laugh here, but this is apple whiskey with Dr. Pepper.
Oh, man, then the joke's on me, Bubs, because I've got a little bit. I've got apple whiskey and, there's my dad mug, and Dr. Pepper. So
I love the mug, Bubs. It looks like a coffee mug. It's a dad mug, so we're going to be talking dad things. We're going to be talking life things. We're going to obviously be touching into sports because I think if there's any topic that really runs our lives, together, it's sports. It's really the connection, not just wrestling.
Right.
We don't much care for politics. We can hit on it, but we can find other topics, things like that. But there's a lot of stuff. And as we sit here and drink flavored whiskey mixed with Dr. Pepper, I respect you even more every day.
Look, I live in Texas, so Dr. Pepper is obviously a big part of my life. I also, that's one of the reasons why, I still live in Texas, and I lived in Texas before, but that was part of why we took such a long hiatus. Is I've recently uprooted my family from Dallas to here in Houston, and you had quite the journey over the last year as well.
Bubs, a lot of things have changed in my life, mostly for the better. I'm still in Georgia as I was before. I still claim Texas as home. I always will.
Good.
But I have been wandering the world. I have been in Kuwait. I have been in Iraq. I have dealt with COVID on multiple different continents. And I've been away. So those days are now behind us. We're back. I am home. I am in my new home, which I just closed like 8 days ago or something like that.
Nice. It looks great, by the way. Big fan.
Very proud of it. Just got to get the walls to not be so white and, get some decor going, if you will.
That'll happen when you first start.
Yep, but things have changed and making the best of it. And we're back here on the podcast angle because we both enjoy it, and we're going to broaden our horizons, talk about a lot of stuff, and bring in some more fans, listeners, folks to talk with and talk about, and all those things, Bubs. And
that's one of the best parts. That's one of the best parts about our podcast is that it's not just about us. We like to bring everyone, get everyone involved, bring people into the mix, and kind of make this a show for everyone.
Yep.
So, as the show goes on and once we hit the end, we'll hit you with all of our social media tags. But hit us up. Tell us what you want to hear about. Tell us what you want us to talk about. And, you could still hit us up about wrestling because there's still some wrestling stuff we're going to get into today, like,
Of course.
well,
Yeah, we can talk about that too. Yeah, we're definitely gonna eventually find our
there.
stride. I think we both would agree that we don't know what our stride is yet, but we're gonna find
No,
it, and we're gonna sink our
I
our teeth
what a
into
stride.
that.
I've never been one for a stride.
Never been much of a stride guy. You like to
No.
shoot from the hip quite a bit, but we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna make the content
Hold
a
on,
hell of a lot better than it was before.
hold
But
on, Bubs. Just old Kyle Everett just
Kyle
comments on
Everett.
the Facebook post. He goes, "When is Bubba Sturgeon going to be on?"
Oh,
So that could be an angle we
well,
could,
let's.
we can
I'm from New Brunswick myself,
myself. Yes,
and wow, what a name drop. I wasn't ready for not either of those names to come up. But Kyle, if
I
you're
know
listening, miss you, Bubs. You're the original Bubs. I've since
he
taken
is.
the name and
I
ran
know.
with it
Really run with it. Like we've gone way too far with it.
way too
But
far.
this is Bubs Nation. All right. Hashtag Bubs Nation. I'm going to get that trending at some point.
That'll trend. So will your fucking dad mug with Apple in it, but we'll figure that out.
Hey, I got into the car business. This is the mug I used every day, and now that I'm in the fire industry, I
Okay.
never use this mug.
It's solely for
I have a
podcast purposes now.
yes, I have a Saints mug that I use at my office now.
Oh well, no one cares about that. So
Yes, but as you can see, I'm decked out in sports gear. He's decked out in wrestling gear. That's the kind of stuff we want to talk about. We just want to talk about life, sports, which we're passionate about, wrestling, what we're passionate about.
I have opinions. Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have lots of opinions about a lot of
I'm going to
things.
force them upon anybody who's playing this. I'm sorry, but this is what you picked. We all make choices, and this was yours. So
Yes.
enjoy it while it's here.
The main, kind of our main focus today, the main topic of discussion is, Bubs, it's been a year since we've done this and spoken in long form. And one of the major changes that have happened in said year is the onset of a global pandemic known as the coronavirus, COVID-19. And because of COVID, there's been a lot of lifestyle changes that have been made, that have been forced upon everybody around the world. But the main focus I want to get into is the effect that COVID-19 has had on sports, mainly with the lack of fans in attendance at sporting events, whether it's football, baseball, MMA, wrestling, American football. Like what I did there?
Ah, God.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to sit here and talk with you about for a while is how has COVID-19 changed the landscape of sports, and what are your thoughts on there being a lack of fans, and what sports has it helped, and what sports has it really been a big detriment to?
Do you even remember? Because I vaguely do, so I'm asking for real. March, April, May time of last year, when sports were canceled across the board, the world, everything was shut down for a time, especially in the States. A lot of Western Europe, of course, was shut down as well because of the pandemic, and we didn't know how we were going to find a way forward to get through to it. And no one really cared about sports because at the time there was fear of the pandemic, right? So sports really took the back burner. But as people became more aware of it, everybody got there. Some control came back over it, and there were preventative measures put in place. Sports kind of came back on, but I remember because that was as I was preparing to leave to deploy
Yes.
last year, was that there were no sports. There was nothing happening live. There was none of those things that we really relied on as fans, and even as like routine things to get us through the weekend. There's things that we do on the weekend that we just look forward to, right? Like watching random soccer matches or watching
Right.
any type of football game if it's football season or basketball, and all those things were
Yeah, I was
taken
getting
away
ready
from
for
us.
the Canadian Football League to
Oh,
start.
weren't we all actually? That's a big needle mover where I'm from.
New Brunswick myself.
That's right. So, like how I did that. But I'm really curious if you recall what that was like, because I remember some of those details, but sports didn't matter at that time, and we were kind of questioning for real how long would it take until we got wrestling back, because that's what we were talking about at the time. Obviously, on the podcast was what was
We were getting
WrestleMania going to
ready
be
for
like.
WrestleMania because
Right.
we had tickets.
We
to
were going.
WrestleMania.
We were going to Tampa. We had everything
I
set
had
up.
yet to
Everything
buy
was
my
bought.
I was yet to buy my airplane ticket because something just kept nagging at me like
Like Corona.
don't do it. Yeah, that. But
Yeah.
to your point, I do remember very vividly that time frame because at the time there was a lot of people, me included, that didn't think it was going to affect me that much and it wasn't going to affect sports all that much. I remember one of my friends had tickets to go to the Dallas Stars New York Rangers game. I grew up a New York Rangers fan. Then I lived in Dallas, became a Stars fan. Two teams that I really enjoy. And I said it was a Tuesday night, and I said, "Are you crazy? It's Tuesday. It's a night game. We have to be up at 5 in the morning to get to work. Not happening. I'll see you at work tomorrow, and you'll be struggling. I'll feel just fine." Well, that Wednesday is when everything started shutting down. I remember NBA basketball games getting shut down
Mm.
during warm-ups. I remember the
Yeah.
Mavs getting ready to play, and then everything got shut down. And it was all over. You couldn't avoid it. And I think that's when it hit me that, okay, this is kind of a big deal. This is, if multi-billion dollar, because we didn't think these sports leagues that make tens of billions of dollars a year in revenue were going to succumb to it. We didn't think they were going to shut down because the money was too good.
Hmm.
But when those organizations started to shut down, that was eye-opening and really made you feel like, hey, this is something I need to be aware of and worried about.
Right. We laughed about this earlier, but I can recall specifically when I saw via the internet and/or uh, Twitter when Tom Hanks got COVID, him and his wife, and
Right.
then at that
They were
same
in
time,
Australia at the time, I
right,
believe.
and then Rudy Gobert got it, and we laughed about this earlier, right? When Rudy got it, but
Yes.
that was the moment I can recall, like, okay, a very prominent NBA player has COVID. What does that mean? And I think there was still a lot of ignorance at the time about how bad COVID could be, what it could do to you, especially to somebody maybe in like peak athletic form like Gobert would be right now. But when he got it, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe this is a big deal and a problem. And then around that same time, obviously things start closing down. You can remember it was the Dallas owner who was like sitting on the sideline and he read a
Yeah,
tweet
Mark Cuban.
and
Yeah.
Cubes got up and like showed it to the ref or whatever, and like it was the announcement that the NBA had decided to shut down the league for X amount of time indefinitely, right? So
Thanks, Rudy.
yeah, that was his fault, right? But
this,
I can remember
this is
some of those
French
things,
ass.
and looking back, it's like, well, we didn't necessarily overreact because I don't want to say that, but
No.
we made some serious adjustments that I don't think a lot of us were actually expecting to happen. Because yeah, the NBA $1 billion in worldwide revenue every year, and when they had to shut it down, when the NFL had to make changes before the season could
Right.
start, these type of things, it was crazy.
Baseball was just about to start too, and you had basketball and hockey that were in the midst of their playoff
Mm.
pushes.
Yep,
Both of those leagues were
bubble
a
time.
couple months away from starting the playoffs.
Right.
So, kind of the fallout from that is things did shut down. They had to come up with a plan, and we got, at least in the case of hockey and basketball, we got bubbles.
Right.
That became the big buzzword in sports is a
Hmm.
bubble. Is your league going to be in a bubble? Are we going to have an NFL bubble, an MLB bubble, and kind of in those sports where there's a lot more people involved, a lot more players
Hmm.
on each team.
Especially the NFL teams are huge.
Yes, there's no way a bubble would have worked
Mm.
in the NFL, but it worked perfectly for an NBA
Hmm.
who has 12, 13 players
Right,
per team,
and a small staff, right?
right?
Hmm.
NHL, same thing. The bubble worked for those sports, and the fact that both of those sports finished out their seasons in the way that they did was a huge step in the right direction in the healing process,
Hmm.
but also in the I get in the aspect of that sports can move on.
Yeah.
It showed us that sports could happen even with it because there were no fans.
Right.
No one was allowed in these bubbles. There was absolutely no fans in the stands. And it brought back some normalcy that was sorely lacking in the months leading up to it.
Right. So the NBA bubble itself was quite unique, and there was still fun basketball to watch. But when it comes to, I mean, putting the fan perspective hat back on, if you will, watching these games on TV was very much like watching NBA summer league games because
Yes.
the
Well,
atmosphere.
I wanted to bring that up. What the lack of fans? How do you
Yeah.
think it affected? Because I think it affected both basketball and hockey in two completely separate ways.
Okay. Well, you know that I can't speak to the hockey realm nearly as much as you can, but watching a lot of NBA games during a lot of the downtime that I unfortunately had for various travel reasons, the the NBA bubble and watching it was very difficult because I did not realize how important the atmosphere of a game was. It was like important to me watching it at least through television and of course when you're there. But to see some of these games with empty arenas, with minor staff, with players sitting in individual chairs far apart, it didn't have it for me. And I could tell you the same thing about wrestling as well, is that it made NBA games very difficult to watch, and it made me almost have to force myself to think, okay, this is a real game. This counts. This is the NBA Western Conference Finals Game 3. I need to be paying attention because even though this season has a asterisk on it for me, this is
Right.
real, and these players, this team could be going to the NBA Finals, and this is relevant, and I care about this shit. But to see it happen, it was very hard to process it, and honestly, made it much less entertaining for me as a fan watching it from home.
And there's a lot of people who feel that every sporting event that took place in 2020 has some kind of asterisk
Mm-hmm.
next to it because the fans do bring an extra dimension to it. There's no such thing as home field advantage right now. Definitely not in the same way that it was once thought of a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of that to it where maybe champions in 2020 aren't as viable as previous champions. Like maybe this championship isn't looked at the same way as other titles that have been won. But like you said, basketball felt without the fans, I didn't realize just how much the fans were vital and important
Mm-hmm.
to basketball. The constant chanting, the defense
Yeah.
chants,
Late game, fourth quarter action.
yes, where the fans are going nuts and
Mm-hmm.
every shot is a big shot and the crowd reacts accordingly. Just imagine if Luka hit that buzzer beater that he hit in the playoffs with the double AC completely filled.
Right.
Just the sound that would have come out from the crowd. Now basketball, I definitely feel was hurt the most. The on-screen product was hurt the most, in my opinion, of all the sports. But like I mentioned before, I feel like hockey, it was the complete opposite. And hockey was very the NHL was very smart in how they did it. There were only two sports going on at the time: basketball and hockey. And people were dying for sports. They wanted any kind of sports content.
Yep.
So they were able
Because
to
we're all
work
sitting at
out.
home.
Exactly. I was too.
Mm-hmm.
And being a big hockey fan, every day I had 4, 5, 6 games just rapid fire.
A lot of content.
I was never without hockey. And even though during the season I maybe didn't follow it a whole bunch, the round robin and the mini playoff that they had leading into the playoffs, I was hooked on every game. I watched every single bit of action. And because of that, that love that I have for hockey that wasn't fully there anymore had come back.
Right.
While my love of basketball got pulled back.
Mhm.
And I didn't have those same feelings that I did before with basketball, and I think it's because the fans weren't there.
Right.
But with hockey, it was the complete opposite. The fans don't play as big of a part in an NHL game than in a basketball game. So because of that, it didn't really matter a whole lot to me that there weren't fans in the stands.
Right.
So to me, hockey benefited way more than basketball did.
And there was a lot of, like you said, the need for content at a certain point, because if you can remember, obviously there was a point when almost everyone was sitting at home, when there was no movement. Cities were shut down, states were shut down, for lack of a better word, and we needed something to watch. And there were things like hockey on, and I don't typically search for hockey games in my various streaming services, but obviously there's a time when, like, you need competition. That's why you love sports. That's why you watch it, and when it's on, it's still entertaining nonetheless.
Hey, you were loving hockey when we had the New Orleans Demons building up and on on EA Sports NHL.
Yeah, that's big stuff.
I
hope they're still doing great. But
oh yeah, we've got old ass Ilya Kovalchuk.
You need to tank for first round picks. That's all I'm telling you to do.
We've got something going right now, Bubs, and it's we'll make the playoffs this year, and we're building for the future. But I did put up a Twitter poll at CAE Pod, and the question I posed is the same one that, well, the question was, what sport has benefited the most / not suffered as much through COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Choices are American football, basketball, and I threw basketball in there because I expected that to be the one that got shit on the most.
Yeah.
MMA and football / soccer. And surprisingly, there is a tie for first by a mile between basketball and MMA.
Has benefited the most.
People believe that basketball has. Now, I do agree, and MMA was my choice, and I'm going to get into that a little bit
I can
here.
see that. I'm not on board with the basketball.
To me, MMA has benefited the most through all of this, but I was very surprised to see, and the poll is going to be up there for the next 18 hours. So as you're listening to this, and either live on Twitch, it's at 6 Star Productions on Twitch, or when you're listening to this on the podcast, you can still see the poll on Twitter and go and vote at CAE Pod. But I am shocked to see that there's so many votes for basketball, with American football being in dead last by, like I said, a mile.
American football, which also comes down, when I think of the lack of fans, I said it once, but like the fourth quarter game-winning drives, the late game necessities to be perfect, where you need a score, you need a defensive stop, kind of things. That's where basketball,
the home field advantage,
right? Home field and or court advantage. These kind of things, and football has been very different. Again, through watching it on TV, the lack of the sound from the crowd being there has again made it very difficult to watch. And football is still very fun. When you have all the great players out there, and everyone's, it is what it is. It's still great to watch. But basketball for me has been the biggest one that has suffered for me, because I want the crowd reaction. If you remember during Golden State's runs of championships, how loud Oracle would get in the fourth quarter.
It was amazing. That's
what I look for.
Special atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I was a fan of Golden State during that run, and I loved just the atmosphere of the crowd. Even in, think back to when LeBron was in Miami, and they would have those whiteout games.
Yeah.
Or it's just the crowd in basketball is so involved that you don't realize it until it's gone.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that? Because I feel that the actual on-court action has suffered because of it. Do you also feel that same way? Or am
100%.
I
No,
okay?
I absolutely think the game has gotten slightly less entertaining because I know for a fact that the players thrive off of the crowd, whether you're home or away, it doesn't matter, and your
Yeah,
level
because you
of
got all those
play goes
contacts
through.
in the NBA, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'd be
You know
calling them
for a
up. They just bring me in on a lot of consulting
yeah.
gigs nowadays. So
That's
it's
why we
great.
brought up Rudy.
Yeah,
One of your boys.
he's my plug. Anyway, players players need that, and I think it really makes the game 10 times better when you're the away team and you're fighting against not only the team but the crowd. So yes,
Right.
the action itself on the court has gotten less entertaining to a minor degree, but noticeable.
Yes, and to me, I think basketball is the one sport that needs the fans to come back the most, with possibly, I guess, the NFL being second
Mm.
in that. How did you feel because we had a full 16 game season in the NFL. Do you feel that any of the season was tainted due to a lack of fans or with the coronavirus happening? You had games that were postponed. You had
Yeah,
Denver playing a practice squad receiver
that's right.
at
I
quarterback
I
against
tried to
one of the
start him in
top
fantasy.
defenses in the league.
I forget the kid's name, but I tried to
Why would
start
you
him in
start him
fantasy.
when he's playing the Saints defense?
Oh, so once again,
Lattimore and Cam Jordan and
yeah,
Demario Davis, they feasted.
Bub's
Anyway,
an absolute asterisk for me. Just point blank, absolute asterisk year for me. There were some
really,
teams in some stadiums that had
in
minor
a full season,
capacity.
there was a full season, mind you,
Yes, there was. We
and
just
you're
finished.
still putting an asterisk next to it. Is it because Tom Brady
It's
won?
because Tom Brady won. So it gives me an easy out. I will
It
protect Peyton
does.
Manning's legacy with every
Gronk,
ounce that I have.
former 24/7 champion
That's right.
Rob Gronkowski.
Some of these stadiums had
But an
fans in
asterisk, you
attendance.
think they're,
Yeah,
that is surprising to
it it
me.
was not nearly as entertaining. But again, think about where I was, Bubs. I was gone for the year,
Right.
so
You were in a country
my
without,
view. Yeah, I didn't have live football. I had the next
you didn't have the
morning.
Red Zone
I
network like I
no,
did.
I had 8 hours and or 12 hours delayed of rewatching games after I had already seen it. So
Right.
don't really dive into my opinion on this one too much because
But
that
it's still a
played.
valid opinion. Like, you say that there is an asterisk next to the season. It
Mhm.
was a full season. I want to I want to jump in. I want to dive into that. What?
Preseason atmosphere. Every game felt like
Okay.
preseason atmosphere
So you're
because
saying the lack of fans caused this season to not play out in a, I don't want to say competitive way, but I don't know what the term I'm thinking of.
you're kind of right because
Okay.
when the NFL is choosing to delay games for the health of players, obviously I don't say that's
As
not
they should
wrong,
have. Yeah.
right? That's a good thing. That makes
Well, it only works for the Steelers and Ravens. Does not work for the
Ravens really
Broncos. They do
like
not
those
get the Broncos don't
that,
get those same
that poor sap.
benefits.
Yeah, so with a lot of that nonsense coming along, it just took out the authenticity of the game for me a little bit,
Okay.
and it wasn't nearly as fun. But again, I'm watching stuff, the next day delayed, and I'm reading about it, and I'm like, well, this isn't any fun. I wouldn't have wanted to watch this game anyway. This poor wide receiver had no chance, basically running wildcat the entire offense that he was out there.
It was rough.
So
It was like watching, Navy run a spread offense.
run the ball, Navy. What are you doing?
Okay, so does you being in a place where you couldn't watch it live
Hmm.
and you were already spoiled to the scores, if you sought out,
Right.
scores before watching,
Which I did because I played fantasy hard while I was gone.
does that play a huge part
It does,
in it?
and
So
I'm willing to admit that absolutely.
let's say you were here in the
Hmm.
States like I was, and you had access to, because we, full disclosure, we are the best of friends. Big
That's
shocker
fair.
there.
Yeah.
We share my YouTube TV account.
Hmm.
And during the football season, I get the sports package with NFL Red Zone Network. So to me, being able to still every Sunday have my normal routine, put on Red Zone, uh, fall asleep during halftime of the first games, wake up in the fourth quarter, watch the
All
end of the.
routine, you know.
I still had my same football routine that I've had for years and years. That was a weird. What
Sorry,
happened?
Bad Bunny's on my TV.
Oh no, is Damian Priest there too?
Yeah, he's with him.
Yeah,
So
he
I had
is.
to. I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay, no, that's fine. Uh, this we're we're
We'll get
live,
there.
pal.
We'll get there.
You know?
Yeah.
But so my routine was not changed at all when it came to football. So in my opinion, the season didn't feel all that different. Yes, there was a lack of fans, but football's not a sport where the fans really play a huge part to me watching.
Right. Not nearly
Basketball
as
is
big
completely
as
different.
basketball. Yeah.
Right. So to me, the season was as normal and as good to go and as regular as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And even the fact Tom Brady winning made it even more normal.
Right.
So
Normal last year.
So let's say you were in that same predicament. Let's say you were here for this season. You had Red Zone Network because we use the same YouTube TV, and you were able to watch it just like normal. Follow fantasy live as it happens. Would that have changed your opinion? Would you still put an asterisk next to this season?
I think I would because I care far too much about a lot of stuff. So we brought up the Denver
Okay.
Broncos situation, right? So let's
Right.
let's run this hypothetical real quick. Let's say that either the New Orleans Saints or the San Francisco 49ers are
Yes.
out of quarterbacks, are out of backup punters, are
We
out
had
of
Jameis.
everyone who could possibly practice for snaps at the quarterback position.
Right.
Let's say that you're put into the same situation where you're basically finding a former JUCO or college quarterback on a practice squad who has taken snaps before, and he's now your starting quarterback. I don't think that even if that was one game, I still think if you got
It was
blown out
just
in
one
that
game.
game, I think that you'd be like, damn, that was a shitty game. We should have been able to beat that Panthers team that got us a fake win on us real quick, and that affected your playoff seeding. You see what I mean? So
Well, the Broncos weren't going to the playoffs
they weren't.
anyway, so
But
there's
then
that. Okay,
again,
I see what you're saying, that there is something going on in the world that has a real world effect on the play
mhm,
on the field. Now, this was just one instance that
right.
something that drastic happened. Does that still put a damper on the entire season? You act like teams have not had instances where they were on their third, fourth string quarterback because of injuries.
Right. From real football related.
The Steelers had to play Mason Rudolph for an
Big fan.
extended period of time. That's a handicap in and of itself.
It is. Right. Look,
He's still prying a helmet off of this dome.
glad we were getting there one way or another. I don't know, Bubs. I see it as when they decided to start delaying football games for the sake of COVID, the Ravens.
Yeah.
And I think it was Lamar Jackson, right, who was close contact to COVID. So they delayed the game for like 4 days.
Hell, they almost had to delay the Super Bowl because half the Chiefs were getting a haircut.
So it's stuff like that that makes me. And again, I was extremely tuned in to the players and the teams because of how invested I was into fantasy over this last year.
Right.
Because I wasn't watching football and I was really living through fantasy. So again,
And I understand that
I'm
because
willing to
I've
admit
been there where my best fantasy years have been while I was overseas.
Yeah. And I'm
just like you
extremely
were.
committed to it. Because
Right.
one, you have time to put into it, and one, I ended up putting
Lots of time.
lots of monies in a league or two. So you get really invested into things like that. So when I start to see that, there's a practice squad quarterback starting, and people are going to run and snap to try to start him at a quarterback position because he's going to run a whole bunch perhaps, or the Taysom Hill situation, but like long term. And then
Right.
you got the Lamar Jackson stuff where that week is not over because they haven't started the Ravens game for 4 days post Sunday.
Yeah, because it's on a Wednesday now, or
some shit
a Wednesday at 3 in the afternoon. It was something crazy, like something we.
So that's why So when I say asterisk, I'm not taking anything away from what Tampa Bay eventually did, right? I'm saying that this is it's always going to be a year that I'm going to remember, not because of the great football play outside of Derrick Henry, but because of COVID and how it made the NFL season very weird and honestly difficult for me to watch. But I understand that I had a different circumstance than most people. So that's
Well,
what
no,
my
for
asterisk really
sure.
means.
And I agree with that, that no matter what, every sport that has taken place in this last calendar year is going to have an asterisk next to it in the fact that it's unprecedented, just
Mm-hmm.
everything that has gone on. I think football, I don't think that this season the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be judged based off of this pandemic. I think that this was as legitimate of a championship as you can have in football.
So if there was no COVID, real before we pass that point, so if there was never COVID and everything still played out and Tom Brady is still a Buccaneer at the beginning of this year and everything is normal, Tampa Bay is still your Super Bowl champion as we sit here today.
There is a very strong possibility, yes. I think where the problem runs into is the home field advantage. Now, they would have had a very hard time against the Saints in the Dome in the playoffs with that typical New Orleans Saints home crowd.
Yes.
But to caveat that, the Saints had beat them twice already that season. So what does Murphy's Law say? If something bad is going to happen, it will happen. You beat a team twice in a season, you play them a third time, chances are they're going to get you that third time. So, especially when you have a quarterback who's supposedly playing with broken ribs and, messed up shoulder. So, I do think the Buccaneers, because you want to know why I think the Buccaneers still have a very strong chance of winning? Defense. Tom Brady, yes, and his leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That's an intangible that cannot be quantified. But their defense, they had, just like when they won in 2003, they had a tremendous defense back then. Derek Brooks was the Super Bowl MVP, I believe. I'm going to have to look that up. But they had
He was good. So was Warren Sapp. Yeah.
Yes, they had a tremendous defense. And this year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers also had a tremendous defense.
Yeah. I'll find every stab opportunity I can to take something away from Brady to protect Peyton Manning, but
yes,
I don't have much else. Really running out of things at this point.
All right, I'm looking it up. Who was the...
Derek Brooks doesn't sound right, Bubs. A defensive player?
Dexter Jackson. That's who it was. I knew it was a defensive player.
Okay.
Dexter Jackson. But Derek Brooks had a great game, too. He had an interception, I believe, in that game.
Strong all the way around.
That was a mugging. There were a string of some bad Super Bowls during that time.
That was a shit Super Bowl.
So the Broncos destroyed the Falcons. That was a rough Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Then the Ravens destroyed the Giants. That was a rough Super Bowl. And then skipped to the Buccaneers destroying. Yeah. There was a string of some bad Super Bowls there.
A lot of one-offs too, like Carolina showing up a time, Seattle showing up a time.
Only to lose to Brady.
These kind
only
of things.
To lose to Brady.
Yeah.
No, Seattle lost to lost to the Steelers, and then two or 3 years later, the Steelers are back against
Arizona,
and then 2 years later, they're back losing to Green Bay. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not necessarily they fall into the dynasty category for sure. But yeah, a lot of one-offs that happened, and a bit like this year, I certainly think that Tom Brady chose to go to Tampa because that team it might not have looked last year like they were built to win, but they were not far off. And if you have a coach like Arians and enough pieces around you,
if you have a quarterback that doesn't throw 30 plus picks,
well, if he leads the league in passing touchdowns,
you have a recipe for success. If you have a great defense and a quarterback who does, but Jameis got eye surgery.
Elias, we walk with him, Bubs.
Yes, that's why he's pushed all the way down the card because we walk with him.
Him and Archer are going at it.
Oh, good. Wait, Archer?
The
You mean
Archer of
Damian
the
Priest?
Archer of Infamy. Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
not Lance
You.
Archer.
I was like Lance Archer. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
big signing.
Man, it
As
was
you
big.
check your
It
phone.
was a trade. I know. I was like WWE trades big show for Lance Archer.
Ah,
But going. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the sport I think that benefited the most, which is MMA. Uh, and the creation of Fight Island,
Fight Island,
which
Bubs. I'm
is the
ready to talk Fight
greatest.
Island.
Fight Island maybe is the greatest thing to come out of COVID and Corona as a whole.
Ah,
Um, I mean, I wish I could be on Fight Island. I know Steve wishes he could be on Fight Island, but he's busy, in some Pan Am shooting thing.
all right.
But
Well, I'm in. All right.
yeah,
I'm in. Let's go.
son of a bitch, I'm in. But MMA as a whole, and especially Dana White and the UFC, really benefited from having no fans because I didn't realize how much I hated MMA fans. As much as I hate WWE fans or
Yeah.
just wrestling fans in general, um, even though wrestling fans really add to the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think wrestling has really not suffered, but has degraded in quality. MMA is absolutely amazing without fans. You don't have people booing when there's a lull in action. You hear every strike,
Yeah.
every thud, every punch, kick, every moan and grunt. You hear all of it. And it really sucks you into the atmosphere of the fight. It really makes you feel like you're one of the cornermen. It makes you feel like you're right there. You're a judge. You're a play-by-play guy. You're there cage side.
Yeah.
And to me, it has made it, it's turned it into quite the spectacle. Now, I do think there have been times where fans would have made a fight even bigger. Like, I think Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor would have been even better in front of a crowd. Just the crowd reaction when Dustin knocked down Conor and finished him off would have been huge. But on the flip side, Conor could have easily have made a better showing feeding off of that energy from the crowd. But I have thoroughly enjoyed every bit of Fight Island, the Fight Apex, UFC Apex in Las Vegas. I loved it all. And I enjoy not having fans there. I do think when fans come back, they're just going to be so loud and boisterous and just craving the action that it'll make for a great atmosphere for a while.
I think that'll be the case across the board for everything.
Right.
Absolutely. MMA has done quite well, and as has boxing as well. Like the actual combat sports stuff has done so well. And looking back, I thought that it would have also struggled because as in a sport where adrenaline means a whole lot, and you must feed off the crowd, and you need that sense of comeback and things like that. That if you don't have that from the crowd or the boos and the cheers, that it would affect you. But obviously, it hasn't done bad. I mean, they're still doing pay-per-view sales, obviously, because we're all stuck at home, forced to buy pay-per-views. So money is still there. But when fans come back to events like this, and obviously to wrestling and WWE and AEW, you're going to see this. We're going to hear some of the loudest pops that we've heard for even the most generic entrances for the first time. I hope that obviously
for the first show that happens with live fans, every person who comes through that curtain are going to get a huge pop.
Yes, and I'm excited to do it. I want to do it here and watch it or be part of it as well. And maybe they can have wrestlers enter with no music again. Remember how those days were for certain heroes.
God,
if we could just do that
so
again,
good.
folks like Ciampa. But
Tommaso Ciampa.
Those were good days. But when it happens, it's going to be great. But it's going to be loud, and it will fade down. And if things go back to normal, it'll be, business as usual, I guess. But for the first couple shows and weeks, it's going to be nice.
Well, we've got WrestleMania coming up in a little over a month, maybe a month and a half. But there are going to be at least 20,000 fans
Yeah,
at
something like
Raymond
that.
James Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
With such a huge venue, with that amount of people, like it's 25%
Yep.
capacity. Do you think that we're going to be able to notice that there's fans there?
Very little.
Because you have to think about the Attitude Era.
Mm-hmm.
Arenas had 16,000 people,
Yeah.
and those fans were, loud and boisterous, but in an open in an open stadium, not kind of an open stadium,
Right.
having 20,000 people when put inside of a stadium that seats 100,000 people doesn't seem like a lot. So in perspective, it's not a lot of people, but 20,000 people is a lot of people in one place. Should the WWE have booked maybe the same arena that the Tampa Bay Lightning play in,
Indoor
and
arena.
have 5,000 people there?
Well, they still care about revenue, so they want
Okay.
20,000 tickets, right?
Well, I get that. Yeah.
And I
And
want
people are going to buy them, and people are going to pay a lot of money for them.
absolutely they're going to sell out. It's not going to be a problem. I want as a fan sitting at home watching this, I want to hear the basketball arena full of 8,000 people
Yes.
screaming for this, right? But because now, even though they're doing these football arenas now for every WrestleMania, and we'll always have that now, so they can fill them up to 6 digits worth of people. The spectacle and seeing that when it's full is great. It was amazing to be there in Dallas when they did it with all those people. It's great to see every year when they did have it with fans. But now to see that with I imagine like pods of group of people. If you come with 6 people, you're gonna be in this pod, and then
Right.
social distancing for 2 people, and so on and so forth. It's going to look weird.
Super weird. And are they going to have the cardboard cutouts like we saw at the Super Bowl?
They might. If
and you could pay you could probably pay $100, get your
face on
cardboard
there.
cutout somewhere.
Anything to make money, I think WWE will consider for sure. So if they want to fill up 100,000 seats,
Do they bring the Thunderdome screens with them, and we just have people's faces everywhere? What do you think about that? How's that been? Okay, so we've had. All right, so let's bring this into perspective. So we've had no fans.
Mm-hmm.
We've had only cardboard cutouts. We've had fans and cardboard cutouts. And in the WWE, we've had the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Where it's people's faces on screens all over, but with canned audio, canned sounds, canned chants that are clearly not coming from the people watching.
Yeah.
What do you think has worked the best?
The minority group of fans with the cardboard cutouts. In both basketball and in the NFL stadiums.
Because it gives the illusion that that it's full, that there's all these people there.
And I know I'm being teased. I can understand it's a cardboard cutout of a person. I still think it's cool because some little kid got to tell his parents, I want my cardboard cutout face on the 50-yard line, and he got what he wanted, right? So there's still some cool things that can happen. And with these, between 10 to like 40%, some of these stadiums have gone up to of fan capacity. You're starting to hear noise again. These things are starting to matter. So that is what I like. I want people to go if they want to go. I want these states and cities to allow people to go if they want to go in some of these condensed areas. And I have enjoyed that. There has been a lot of live sports that I've actually enjoyed. The NBA season so far has been not rough necessarily, but I'm still not drawn in because I want the fans back. But I mean, now that I'm settled in the house and I've stopped moving, I'm going to be back in to seeing what's available and watching everything. But it's been different for so long that I've almost accepted it as normal now, and I don't want to.
I think we all have.
I miss what it used to feel like, and I'm actually kind of craving that now. So that's why I've had this asterisk about a lot of things, is because it's not what I want it to be.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, at the end of the day, all of us just want some normalcy.
Yeah.
And at least having our favorite sports, our favorite shows like wrestling on television and happening live does feel good and gives us some normalcy. You've got things like AEW and NXT where they have actual. Do they have actual fans, or is it strictly just performers that are
It's just talent. Yeah.
okay? But you still have those people there, and it makes you crave the full experience.
Yeah.
And I think once we can get that full experience back, it will go a long way in helping everyone feel that the world's gone back to normal. And
Right.
honestly, at this point, as long as this has gone on, that's all that we want. We just want to feel that the world has gone back to normal.
I just want to buy WrestleMania tickets for next year so we can redo.
Is it Arlington next year?
Or it's LA next year. Maybe Arlington's in
Oh.
2 years. Nevertheless.
Well, either way.
Yeah,
we'll
I want to.
there.
We need to set this
I've
up
been
again.
to I know places in LA we can. I'll talk to LeBron.
You got some folks out there?
Yeah.
Like, just okay.
The guy from the remember the Titans that I met at the beach?
Oh, Sunshine. That's right.
Yeah.
You hung out with Sunshine and his kid.
Yeah, and his kid Fox. Great guy.
Yeah, it's a big
We had a
flex.
good time. Hey, his kid came up and just started playing with my kid's toys. I was just like, hey, what the fuck is this? You stop that.
Sunshine.
And then he was like, I'm an actor. And I was just like, we're in LA.
Are you? I'm an actor. Fuck you.
No, he was awesome. Great guy. Had a good time. But going back to fans, it was the NLCS during that trip. The Cubs were playing the Dodgers,
Mhm.
and I went to game 1, and it was just we had such a great time. The fans at Dodger Stadium were awesome. The stadium itself was great, and that's an atmosphere. I moved to Houston just ready to jump into the Astros and the Texans and just becoming a Houstonian and getting in that atmosphere. And
Houston has since dumped everybody since you've moved there, but that's a topic.
yes. Oh, and to Barbados Slim, yes, we will make wrestling great again. Don't worry about that.
Good.
Yes.
Wrestling is ready.
Thanks for watching, by the way. Thanks for being part of the show. But yes, I miss that. I want to be part of it again. I crave that live interaction again.
Bubs, we'll eventually talk about it over the next coming weeks. But like you said, WrestleMania is coming up, and last year we went through Mania with no fans. It was a very weird experience.
We were supposed to go.
Yeah.
But we ended up Skyping each other and watching it.
Yep, both nights.
With each other.
It was still fun. WrestleMania was fine last year from a performance standpoint.
It was great. And here's the thing: I think wrestling, yes, it could definitely use the fans, but much like MMA, I think a lot of the promotions have done a great job of continuing on and moving forward without fans. I think WWE, has had much better programming since all of this has happened. We've been able to see people that we want in the spotlight get thrust in that position because they're not worried about certain reactions from the fans.
Right.
Like Roman Reigns is a heel, and the WWE is fully on board with it because they're not worried about the fans cheering him.
Yep.
For being the badass that we always wanted him to be.
Yeah, the TV outcome now is almost irrelevant now. It's a lot of social media backlash, but that can all be managed and really doesn't mean as much as we all think it does.
Yes. So I think in that regard, and AEW continues to thrive, and it's got to be hard for them because they really started at what you would think was a great time.
Yeah.
And then it just completely went to hell in a handbasket for them. And they're still there. They're still pushing forward. They're about to have they're about to have a huge event down in Jacksonville. We're going to have a barbed wire death match between, you know how I feel about
I
Moxley.
love you. I know. We can talk John Moxley if that moves the needle for you.
I'm getting a headache right now just thinking about it. Kenny Omega.
Didn't he just win Bloodsport though? I feel like we can talk about that. Whose Bloodsport is it? Who?
Josh Barnett.
Yeah. So the next event,
Former
it's him and
UFC heavyweight champion and Pride title challenger.
Moxley and Moxley and him are going at it at the next Bloodsport event, because I guess Moxley earned that right by beating Davey Boy Smith Jr. I didn't know that Davey Boy had that kind of clout in the old fighting world, but nonetheless.
Well, Josh Barnett is a surprisingly good pro wrestler. Once he was done with even before he was done with his MMA career, he was really into pro wrestling in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Made a name for himself there. He was the announcer next to Morrow for NJPW on Access Television. Big fan of Josh Barnett.
Yeah.
But that's irrelevant to the point of AEW has found a way to thrive, and they just had probably, in my opinion, the biggest signing of its entire inception.
Needle mover.
In the last week, and that is Paul White, aka The Big Show, has left WWE. He claims because of the way he was treated during the Legend show
by Randy Orton, our goat of goats.
Randy is a goat, and he's going to be on the Broken Skull sessions. Dude, I don't know if you saw that, but I'm pretty excited.
Is that the next one that's coming out? Yep. Him and Orton? That's going to be good.
Saw that on the old Twitter machine.
Bubs, it is very, I don't know if it's important. I don't know the right word, right? Not a needle mover, right? But
it's huge. I was genuinely shocked.
It was a shocking thing, because Big Show has been a WWE guy since '99, since he left WCW, where he was successful already, and then came over and he's done everything. He has ran the card. He has been a loyalist. He has been there for 20 years. And for him to just basically up and say, well, I didn't like the way I was treated. I don't feel like I'm done.
There's more to it than that, right?
There has to be, right? But when I saw the meme, I was like, well, this is just a funny meme in the morning. And then it turns out that it was real. And now he's going to join AEW, probably to do various things. He's an ambassador for wrestling is really all he is. So it was important that it happened. I don't know how much of use he'll be for AEW to expand, but I was surprised.
And it's not that he will be a use in the ring. It's everything that he brings behind the scenes.
Yes.
The 30 years almost of experience, just the leadership and the...
Is he going to be the wise old man role? Is that kind of...
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Mark
and I think it's already... And I think it's already been put in motion that is going to be his role. I think he's going to do some announcing on Dark.
Absolutely.
And I think he's the perfect guy to have your bigger guys, the big guys, your hosses, kind of guide. And I was genuinely surprised and shocked, and I'm excited to kind of see what happens. I know he's not going to have much of an impact in the ring, except for when him and Shaq now inevitably.
Yep, that's already I'm booking it now.
Yes. Yep. So, and thank you. It's good to be back. Thank you guys for jumping in on the chat on Twitch. But yeah, I mean, I think Big Show is going to have a strong impact on AEW's product and their talent, especially their young talent backstage.
So far, it will certainly be the most peculiar vision to see him on AEW TV. It was easy to adjust to Jericho because Jericho went to Japan and we saw him in Japan.
Can we go ahead and call AEW WCW light at this point?
We could have a long time ago, but That makes their fans
I think
upset.
bringing the Giant in makes.
Oh, the Giant.
What if he
Why?
starts doing missile drop kicks
If
off
he
the top
starts
rope?
jumping over the top, I'll go find the highlight reel that I
Yes.
watched earlier because
Of course you did.
I
You are
I have those
such
saved
a
in my phone.
well.
But needle
But
mover.
it's a podcast.
Ugh.
It's a big bad podcast now, y'all.
And
So
now the Miz is fighting Bobby Lashley for the title. They delayed the
good.
match, Bub, so we're underway.
Well, it's the final hour. It's main event closing in time. So what do you expect?
Thunderdome is currently popping. I am all about Bobby Lashley as not a long-term main event guy, but let's be honest, we need to see what that belt looks
He's
like around him.
He's been needing, and I agree with Barbados Slim here. Miz is going to be crushed, but is he going to lose the title? Look at us. We still can't help talking about wrestling, even though we said we're moving away from the wrestling moniker.
John Morrison looks great next to him.
I know.
When I think, like, if we're talking about what this sets up for
the way
WrestleMania,
the Miz looks at the title.
McIntyre versus Miz is not main event for me. Lashley versus McIntyre.
As much as we love the Miz,
love him.
Nothing and Miz screams main event.
Yeah. Love the guy though, and he's definitely a great champion, but not for this type of
But
era.
It's going to be, and our chat has a great point. It's going to be Miz and Morrison against Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
Yeah, and that's what we're getting. We're also going to get Shane McMahon
unless
versus
Bad
Braun
Bunny's
Strowman,
going to become the WWE champion.
I don't have time to entertain.
Oh, Braun Strowman and Shane. Imagine Shane.
I don't know what. Shane's taking
Lashley
a bump. I don't know how.
Good. Oh my God, Lashley just.
Look at MVP.
When I'm 68 years old, I want to look as good as Bobby Lashley.
Still in
he's like
physical
42.
condition.
But still, I was at WWE Raw, Lafayette, Louisiana. Bobby Lashley was the main event. It's back in 2007, I think. And I was in the front row, and he walks by me, and I can't describe to you just how big he is.
I would want this to be a squash, and if I've always wanted to be WWE for a minute. I would let Bobby have the Dominator back like he had, and let him dominate. There's the
Ron
Pyro
Simmons.
Again. Yeah, hit him with the Ron Simmons Dominator, and that's your game. 1, 2, 3, and we have a champion. But
MVP is hurt because he just won the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championship. Because he's
in real life, yes.
Monster. Yes.
Now this will be good though. Nevertheless, Lashley's a beast. Him and Brock is well overdue. Him and type of main
McIntyre
event.
Is
overdue. That's good money. I'd buy
Remember
tickets
when
for
him
that.
and Rusev were feuding over Lana?
I do. Those were not the days.
No? Okay. Bubs, you say you're drinking some apple whiskey. What is your whiskey of choice?
I am a Canadian Crown man myself, Bubs. New Brunswick.
Okay.
You know.
Ooh.
Yep, Crown Royale of types. I have. They had no vanilla earlier. Not that I don't like
the Miz
the
is
apple.
such a great promo. Sorry,
always
just going ham sandwich right now.
Now he's screaming. I love it. But yes, it is the apple of Canada, Bubs, mixed with some nice Texas Dr. Pepper.
Yes, Lashley versus Rusev was a horrible feud.
That was just a time filler.
Say that.
A lot of TV time, though. I don't know why.
Did
because Lana looks good on TV, and so does
Bobby.
They
had a very good Falls Count Anywhere match, though. I think it was on.
Okay, I don't remember.
Raw. Oh God, Raw's just starting there in Hawaii. Well, don't listen to our play-by-play.
Oh God, ignore us.
This,
yeah, you'll miss. You want to be surprised by the Bad Bunny, promo in the match. I'd hate to ruin that for you. If I wanted to be anybody in their 40s, I'm John Morrison, though. That man is cut.
Oh God, right? I don't think
he's on the list.
How old is he?
I don't know, 41, 42.
Is he?
Isn't he?
Damn, Johnny Impact.
Johnny everything, yeah.
So I'm cheap right now. So I've got the Jim Beam rocking right now.
It is a little cheaper.
I finished off that bottle of vanilla that you bought.
Okay.
Drank that just straight. I just
That's fine. It's
yeah.
sweet enough. It tastes fine going down.
I just finished off the apple tonight,
Okay.
and I still have some of those, the little minis that
It's shots,
Emily
right?
got us.
Yeah.
Yes. Um,
You can just
if
take
you
those
don't
for a
know,
cigar and
so I smoked all the cigars that I got too. Ooh, man, the match is actually happening. So when you came back from Iraq, you were stuck in Fort Hood, and I decided it would be a tremendous idea if I went and saved you from there,
that's good booking.
drove you back to Houston,
Mm-hmm.
only for snowpocalypse to take place. And oh, Mrs. running,
I desperately wanted you to have power and water in your house.
and I didn't. I didn't at all for
Mrs.
like
gone.
3 days. It's gone.
Is this a count out? Oh, it's a count
Yes.
out. Oh, come on,
Is Drew
WWE.
McIntyre gonna bring him back?
Oh, he just carries him out.
Oh, Lashley should just attack that jacked ref. It's
That,
over.
that is the yoke trip. Now that's 10. And there's your match.
That's it.
Oof. Do we still have time? Is it no?
There's still an hour to go. We're nowhere close to.
We'll come
There's
back
no
around.
way.
They'll do match number 3.
Adam Pearce is gonna.
Uh,
But yeah, I still have all the. So I bring it back, Snowpocalypse. So for. Was there a holiday that happened? Valentine's Day. That's right. So for Valentine's Day, my wife, Emily, made both you and me these awesome. There was like a bucket that had foam,
bouquet.
like little. It was a man bouquet.
Yeah.
Mine had cigars, shots of alcohol, different whiskeys, and candies.
Yes.
Yours had the shots of alcohol, protein cookies, which I was jealous of. I was not.
I ate those. Yep.
And various snacks, which I think was a tremendous Valentine's Day gift. And ladies, if you're listening, get your man. And it's not something you go out and buy. You make it.
Little tin bucket, little foam.
Except don't tape the cigars on the wood sticks where the tape is around the opening where you you take it out of
Emily.
Oh,
boo.
Are you much of a cigar smoker, Bubs?
Not like you, Bubs. I'll have a good stogue every now and then, of course, with a nice with brandy and stuff like that. Yeah, but
see, yeah. I can have one every night.
Okay.
And I oftentimes do, even though I haven't had one in a hot minute. But do you have a cigar of choice? I know we probably are going to have some cigar listeners. I know I want to do a show completely on cigars. You know me.
I do not have a specific cigar, Bubs. I feel like there's.
You don't have a brand that you.
No, I feel like there's hundreds, and I've had so many, and this is where
literal thousands.
This is where I'll get some lashing back at me. They all inevitably taste the same.
Okay. Well, most whiskeys taste the same. So most alcohol in general.
They kind of do.
I'm about to get a tongue lashing, but
your palate's unrefined.
All beer tastes the same. So.
Yeah, that's true.
And by same, I mean garbage. So.
Not a big beer guy anymore.
Nope. I only never was.
I do drink better whiskey than Crown Royal at times. I want that to be known. If we're going to make this podcast into something a little bit more, I don't want everyone just to know he only drinks trash Canadian flavored whiskey. I don't. We'll get into the better stuff later at a different time.
Ooh, that's a good idea. So we were just asked in the chat, have we ever thought about doing a battle of the brands like Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze does on Up, Up, Down, Down?
Loved
where we play SmackDown versus Raw. Because I have SmackDown versus Raw 2006.
6, right? Yeah.
So.
Oh, man.
That could be a fun idea.
Oh, yeah, that opens up a lot of possibilities to a lot of different things if we're talking, if we're adding the gaming realm into this, because, we do game.
I know we can have an NHL showdown where, the New Orleans Demons.
Oh, God.
Takes on the Austin
Rednecks?
Coonhounds. I don't know.
The old coon asses, yeah.
The boot ants.
That's it. The G axes, yeah. Gauks.
So you were out in Iraq with the Louisiana National Guard.
I was. Not by
What
choice.
was?
They were there.
Do you feel like I would have gotten along with any of them?
I think that part of your original heritage would have popped out from you, and you would have been
An
able to.
accent would have popped up, and I
Yep.
would have.
Y'all would have started talking in.
Hey,
There would have been colloquials that I didn't understand, and a lot of references to small towns outside of the bayou, and
Mamu.
talking
Hey,
about how
you ever
Lafayette's
driven
the
on
big
Highway
city,
13 and go through Mamu to get to Eunice?
and they'd be like, "Yeah, I live off the fucking Highway Road, Farm Road 13." And you're like, "Yeah,
Farm to
Farm to
market
Market,
roads are in Texas.
Texas." I don't know, Farm Road. That's why I said Farm Road.
Oh, we have those here. It's
Oh, gross. I think that you would have gotten along with some of these folk, though, Bubs.
okay.
Yes.
So, what do you think about that idea of doing kind of some gaming stuff?
How so, though?
Like mentioned in our chat, doing a battle of the brands on a game like SmackDown versus Raw, where there's an actual quantifiable end game instead of like universe mode, where we just make whatever we want and we have fun with it, but where there's an actual winner and loser.
Well, I don't hate it. I'll put that out there in general. If we're talking about competition and things like that, then yeah, it's on our list of. We have a lot of things on the list of how we want to attack this. So it's
because
an open-ended
this is completely new territory we're jumping into. We are no longer a solely wrestling focused show. We want to talk about a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I do want to, and I had been doing some stuff on my own Twitch channel and YouTube channel, but that's going to be merged now into the Collar and Elbow brand, or the 6-Star Productions brand when it comes to YouTube and Twitch. So, Charlotte Flair's coming out. So, I do think that is a viable look into our future. And we want suggestions from all of you that are listening to this right now or watching live
Join it.
on Twitch at 6-Star Productions. Let us know some of the content that you would like to see. And there's a lot more time on both of our hands. We are capable of doing a whole lot more than what we were before. So yes, please continue to give your suggestions. You can do it here on the chat, live during a show, on Twitch at 6-Star Productions. You can do it on Twitter at CAE Pod. You can do it on Facebook, which
right, the seldom used
still,
Facebook page we still have.
Yes, just still Collar and Elbow Wrestling Podcast.
There.
Or is it
I think
just
it's Collar and Elbow Wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah. For the time being,
yeah, we'll get there. It's a merge. Yeah.
There's so much moving forward that needs to get done, that will get done, and we're just excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff on the horizon, a lot of things to get into. I need to know.
A lot more frequent, too.
Hopefully a lot more frequent. We'll talk about some man stuff. Obviously, we've mentioned the bourbon cigar smoking. We'll talk a little bit of dad life. I have a porch that needs stained outside. We have a lot of these type of things.
I have a patio. I'm not a patio. I have a balcony since I live on the second floor of an apartment.
That's right, for now.
Yes, and that's where I smoke my cigars.
That's right. So we're going to get into a lot of that. So lots on the horizon, Bubs.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We had a tremendous time getting back in the saddle. We love doing this. We missed doing this. And it's been such a long freaking year that doing this brings a little bit more normalcy back into our lives. And just the support that you guys have given us. When we made the announcement that we were coming back and that we were going to be live tonight, we got a lot of great feedback on Facebook and Twitter. So thank you guys so much. We're almost at 100. We're almost at 100 episodes.
I'm excited for the 100th episode. We'll be good by then.
Doing it, and it's going to come by a lot sooner than later. So Like I said, we are the CAE podcast, Collar and Elbow podcast. We're on Twitch at 6 Star Productions. We are on YouTube. We are on YouTube. We are on Collar. I think we're 6 Star Productions on YouTube.
That
Damn
makes
it! I'm
sense.
gonna
Yep.
have to look that up.
Now it
My
is.
bad.
It is.
Okay. 6 Star Productions on YouTube and Twitch. We are on iTunes, Google Play, or Google Podcast now.
I think Google Play is also now forced into YouTube Music as well.
Okay.
Now that's a dog. Okay.
Oh God! Shut that
Yeah.
damn dog up.
Shut up.
New dog, same
Yeah.
issues.
Spotify, those Stitcher, Bubs, you remember all the uses.
All the good ones. Get on there, look us up. We're the Collar and Elbow podcast. We're going to continue to bring the best content possible. We want you to be as involved as possible because we can't do this alone. We can't grow this show alone. Only together can we grow this show. And together, we're going to make wrestling great again. We'll see you guys next time.